Hello, quilting friends. My name is Debbie Brown, and I'm here to talk to you today about Pro Stitcher Premium, and we're going over some core skills in this series. I live north of New York City, and it is just a beautiful early fall day that we're getting the fall color without the fall weather. You know, it's not rainy, it's not dreary, it's not cold. Pretty much perfect here. So I'm very happy to be here. Let's see, Dina. I have Dina in Alabama. Hello in Michigan, and hello again in Michigan. Hello, everyone. I'm glad you're here. Uh, as a recap, this is the third in a series of 4 videos I'm presenting on using Pro Stitcher Premium. Now, if you have Pro Stitcher Lite, don't go away. You can stay here. Everything I'm showing you is Pro Stitcher Premium, but if there's a variation on Pro Stitcher Lite, and today there really is, it's important for you to stay. You don't have triangle skew in Pro Stitcher Lite, and I'm going to show you how to work that out. So please stay. Let's see. Hello in Las Vegas and a beautiful day in Michigan. So it's a beautiful day to be quilting with the windows open and hear the birds singing and get the change of seasons here. I apologize. My voice is a little rough. I'm still recovering from the virus that shall not be named, but I'm feeling great and ready to teach today. So let's see, I have hello in Delaware. I can see the chat feature is working in both YouTube and in Facebook. So I can see your comments. If you have a question, please pop it in and I will try to answer it in somewhat real time. If I don't get to your question while I'm live in the video, I will try to go back this afternoon and go through and give links or answers that way. So we're in this together. Yes, it's my romper room. I see Sharon and Janet and Cindy. So yes, it's romper room with Debbie today. Today, let's see, let's go back to what we've done so far. So that's not the one I wanted. I don't want that one. I want this one. So 5 simple steps to stitching with Pro Stitcher Premium was the first video I did. These videos are stored on YouTube. They are not stored on Facebook because of the way Facebook platform works. So go to YouTube if you're in Facebook and go to the Pro Stitcher channel. 5 simple steps to stitching with Pro Stitcher Premium. This is the handout for it, and the handouts are available on my website. You have to buy them, but they're free. It's just the way I reliably know that you can get the download. Let's see. So that first one, we talked about going to define your area, load your design, make it fit, hit baseline, and stitch it out. So our second week, let's see. Let me see how I can do this. Remove that. All right. So the second week, we talked about repeating a design for edge-to-edge quilting within Pro Stitcher Premium. So we created an area and loaded a design. We made it fit. We confirmed the size so that it would stitch out well. We played with the gap if necessary, and we wrapped if necessary. And then after that, we would baseline and stitch. So these videos are stored at Pro Stitcher channel on YouTube, and the handouts are available on my website. So let me remove that, and I will put this up. So what are we doing today? Today, we're going to use align and reposition in Pro Stitcher Premium. And I have this divided into 2 sections. Align is on the left-hand side of the handout, and the handout link is at the top of the chat. Align is on the left side of the handout. Reposition is on the right side of the handout. And if you've never used those or weren't really sure what they did, going back to my first video I did, I use skew whenever possible. And then when it's not possible, then I go and use other tools. And these would be some of the other tools that I use. So we're going to dig into Align, and we're going to dig into Pro Stitcher. We're going to dig into Reposition. So let me pull up my Pro Stitcher and share it with you. Share screen. Okay, so I am in my Pro Stitcher. Let me get rid of that design. So I've created an area, and I have loaded a design. Now, I'm not loading a design on screen because we've done that on other videos, and I have to change screens to do that. So I have made an area, and this is just a 2-corner area I made quickly, and I loaded a feather block design. Now, if I want to use a line, because we're going to do a line first. If I want to use a line, I'm going to go to my Modify tab, and I have Baseline, Rotate, Reposition, Resize, Crop, Align right here. So once I've pressed Align under the Modify tab, in the ribbon, I'll get Align. You're going to look over to the right sidebar over here. Follow my cursor over. We have a lot of different options over here. And right now we're at no align. So I have my design on my workspace and I have my area on my workspace, but I haven't done anything to them yet. Now, I will use skew all the time. I will always use skew if it works. But if it doesn't do the job, that's when I move over. So one thing I can do is I can hit the center button. And what center did was it centered it horizontal. I used the center button at the top here. And this is horizontal and vertical center. So it popped it into the center of the block. I mean, the center of my area, but it didn't resize it. It just aligned it to the center vertically and the center horizontally. So let me hit no align and let me hit some undos here. Okay. So I can center the design in the block. And if I have an area and I want a small design in the middle, there may be a reason that I want it in the middle of my area. I would hit center. Here I can hit the horizontal bar, and these drawings are for me. I am 56 years old and I have trouble knowing the difference between horizontal and vertical. So if you notice, the horizontal buttons are in a tab that is lefty righty. The vertical buttons are in a tab that is uppy downy. And those are made that way for people like me, who I know you can give me all the tricks on how to know horizontal and vertical, but I struggle with it. So I love that they have the pictures on it to make it easier for people like me. I actually married an engineer because he has spatial skills that I don't have. Actually, many other reasons I married him. But I don't need any spatial relation skills because my husband can take care of that for me. So I'm going to go into the horizontal, the lefty-righty. See, I messed it up already. I'm going to go into this lefty-righty. I'm going to align them, and I can align this design on the left side of my area. I can align the design in the center of my area, and I can align the design on the right side of the area. So I can play with those designs as necessary. Let me pull up my handout to make sure I have all of the, that I cover everything in the handout. So that's what I can do horizontally. Let me hit some undos. Let's see, edit, we'll redo. Okay, I'm back here. Modify, align. Now I'm going to go to the uppy downy buttons, the vertical buttons here. So I can align this to the top of my area. Now it's not centered left and right because I didn't ask it to. I just aligned the design where it was so that it's at the top. Let's see, Janet. Left and right are a problem at times. Understood completely. And I like the way the buttons are written so that you can kind of go with the where they are on the screen. You can see that it's the left side that you want it on the over there part, or the right side, you want it on the over there part. So I love that it's not just words for some of us who have a few spatial challenges. So I have aligned it vertically to the top. I've aligned it vertically to the bottom, and I've aligned it vertically to the center. So it's in the center up and down, but it's not in the center lefty righty. So those are simple how those buttons are used. Now, this is the next really cool thing that I can do. Over here, it says stretch, and it has stretch horizontal, and it shows you the line over here and the line over here, that I'm going to stretch that design and make it wide to fit left and right. Let's show you that again. So let me hit no align, and I am going to hit horizontal. It is stretched it horizontally, so it's made it fit left and right. It hasn't changed the design. It hasn't moved the design, just made it wider. I can also go back and hit the vertical button, and that's going to make it as tall as the area is. So I've made it tall up and down, but it hasn't fit on the lefty righty. Then there's a button here that's kind of fun, and I have to explain this twice. So this is called a stretch button, and it has the uppy downy, it has the horizontal and vertical arrows to let you know that it's going to stretch it in all directions. And that's almost like skewing it within your area. How cool is that? I do know a few teachers who teach this way instead of skew, to just go in, take your block, put it in the area, and hit stretch. That can work too. What I love about Pro Stitcher is there's a lot of different ways to do it. For some of us, though, it can be a little confusing because there's too many ways to do it, which is why these are the core skills. I teach the basic. So I start with the skew, but stretch works as well. So does that make sense to everyone? You could just give a little thumbs up, a little check mark if that made sense. So that's how the basic align features work. However, there are some challenges. On your handout, the top line, it says area, align area. Use the options in align to position the design within in the area. And we did all of that. Okay. But the next button, the next part of the handout says stretch doesn't always mean stretch. So let me stop sharing and I'll bring up your handout. There we go. So stretch doesn't always mean stretch. Now, I pressed stretch and it made it bigger to fit in the area. It made it bigger to fit in the area, or it did it in both directions and made it to fit in the area. So that makes perfect sense. Now, did I mention, I know I did. I mentioned I was married to an engineer, and my husband said, you know, it'd be fun. We should take an online computer logic course together. Now, my husband and I have very different ideas of what fun is, because that wasn't very fun. I made it through maybe 2 lessons, and I realized computer logic and people logic are totally different. And I'm not necessarily a computer person. So I quit and said, you have fun without me. I'm going to go do some quilting, and we'll both have fun apart. So here is when stretch doesn't mean stretch. So let me go back and share my screen. Where's my button? I don't want to leave the studio. I had a button a second ago to share my screen. There we go, share screen. And I'm back on my Pro Stitcher screen, all right? So I am going to go to File. I'm going to go Clear All, which is one of my favorite buttons. Go to File in your tabs and hit Clear All, and everything goes away. So I am going to make an area. I'm just going to go move my crosshairs, and I will move my crosshairs by moving the machine. I am going to hit Area to Corner. So there's a ding for the top, and I'm now going to do the opposite one. Let's do this. To corner. So there's my area. Now I'm going to go and load a design. You won't see me load this because it's a separate screen that I'm not sharing. It's just the way the streaming software works. So I'm going to go to load that feather block again. And right now you can see the feather block is bigger than the area. Because before it worked where the feather block was smaller than the area. So let's go back into Modify and Align. And the alignment works the same way. I can say center it, So it centers it over the area. Now remember, if you can't see all of your pictures, follow my cursor. I'm going to go down to the bottom here, and there's a house. It's called refresh, and that centers the area and the design in the middle of your screen and your crosshairs, so you can see everything. Have you ever looked at your screen and not been able to see the design or the area or your crosshairs? This house button here will take care of that. It's called refresh. So I'm going to hit no align. I'm going to hit undo to move that to a different place. Okay. So I can hit the left alignment. So the design is aligned to the left side of the area, but it doesn't fit. The design is aligned to the right side of the area, but it doesn't fit. And the design is aligned to the center of the area, but it doesn't fit. Let's go back. Then I can go to the vertical. Design is aligned to the top. Design is aligned to the bottom. The design is aligned to the center. Okay, let's undo that again. Oops, edit, redo. Okay, modify, align. So here's where it gets interesting. Now we're going to go to the stretch button. And I'm going to say, I want to stretch this block horizontally like we did before. And before, when we hit stretch horizontally, it made it bigger to fit in the area. It stretched it to fit in the area. I just stretched it by shrinking it to fit in the area, because what the computer is doing is stretching it to a negative number. So it thinks it's stretching it, but it's shrinking it. Is that computer logic versus people logic? That is the best example I have, which is why I quit the computer logic course that my husband thought was so fun. So right now, in my mind, when I see the stretch button, I think of stretch or shrink, depending on which way it goes. So if I need to, it's what it's going to do is make it fit to that area. So I have stretched it horizontally, which made it smaller. I can stretch it vertically, which makes it smaller. And then I can also stretch it in both directions. The horizontal and vertical arrows are both here, and it will then make it fit. Did that make sense? Well, stretch doesn't always mean stretch. So I'm going to stop sharing and come back and see you. So your handout here says, stretch doesn't always mean stretch. So automatically resize the design horizontally and vertically within the area. So it went within the area, whether it made it bigger or smaller, it put it within the area. So let's see, so many miles. So stretches really fit? Yes. I'm not going to talk you out of it. You understand it. I'm not going to put any more words in there. But I wanted to show you how that stretch doesn't always mean stretch, the way we think about it. But it makes sense to the computer. And sometimes I guess that's what's important. Excellent. So I hope I've been accused sometimes of sounding like a kindergarten teacher. Sorry, I have this weird hair in my face thing going. That I talk in really simple terms. I'm not doing that for you. I'm doing that for me because that's the way I understand things. And if that is helping you, great. If I'm not the teacher for you, also great. But I do take it down to things that make sense for me. So stretch, it doesn't always mean stretch. Stretch just means it's going to put it within the area. It's going to make it the size of the area. But stretch is the word that's written on there. Okay. So that was a pretty simple tool. Now, how many people here have Pro Stitcher Lite? Because this is for you. This is also for Pro Stitcher Premium folks, but this is for Pro Stitcher Lite folks. So you can leave me a little message here if, a little thumbs up, sorry. Let's see, Erin, is there a handout for the topic? Yes, this is your handout. And if you go all the way to the top of chat in either Facebook or YouTube, you'll find a link for the handout. The handout, you have to purchase it from my website, but it's free. It's just a download. So many miles, you have Pro Stitcher Lite. Okay, this is for you. And Dina, it's beautiful weather. You make it easy for me to learn and remember here in 80 finally. I'm so glad you're here. sometimes when I get around computer people, I feel less than smart because they're super smart and it all makes sense to them instantly. And I've honestly cried over the program over the last 15 years because it just takes, it's a little hard for me to learn some things sometimes. So I'm trying to make it really simple. So there's your handout so Erin, there's your handout. Good for you. Okay, we're ready to go. I'm going to go back into share screen. I'm going to go into my Pro Stitcher. Okay, so let me get back into the Pro Stitcher. I'm going to clear everything out. And to clear everything out, I go to File, and I go to Clear All. I am going to go to Area and make a new area. So I'm hovering my needle over the corner of a triangle right now. And I am going to make multi-point. I'm going up to another corner of the triangle. Multi-point. Multi-point. Now, I'm in Pro Stitcher Premium. I'm going to load a design that you're not going to be able to see me load a design because I can't share the screen. But there's the design. Now, I can go in Pro Stitcher Premium to modify, and I'm going to go to Rotate. Because the first thing I want to do is get this design in at least the same triangle quadrant. I want the right angle of the triangle to be where the right angle of my area is, whether that's on the left, right, top, bottom, it doesn't matter. But I'm orienting the design. I can now go into Skew in Pro Stitcher Premium, hit Triangle Skew, and it just jumped in the box. Isn't that great? I love that. It just fit. Now, I asked how many of you have Pro Stitcher Lite? And these align tools are going to be for you because I love that skew tool and I will always use that first. But what if it doesn't work? Or what if you have Pro Stitcher? This is for you. So let me undo a few times. So there, I'm back to my design. Let me clear everything out again. Hold on, File, clear all. I'm going to go this way. Let me make an area. So I'm going to remake my right area. And that is, let's see, area, multi-point, multi-point, multi-point. And I'm going to bring up my design again. And I'm going to go into Modify. I'm going to go into Rotate and use that 45-degree button to put it, to orient the design so it's in the right orientation for the block. Now, if you have Pro Stitcher Lite, go into Align. And you can do this in Pro Stitcher Premium as well if the skew doesn't do what you want it to do. There are different times to use these. These are problem solvers. Skew is always my first choice, but what if skew doesn't do what I want it to do? Or what if I'm in Pro Stitcher Lite? So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to click left and bottom. So my design is oriented to the left. It's aligned to the left and aligned to the bottom. And you can see both of those buttons are still highlighted. So that means it's going to stay highlighted there. So I can turn those off and it's not going to continue to align. I'll go back and this will make sense in a minute. So I'm going to I'll turn those off. So if I go to resize, where's my resize button? There we go. If I go to resize and I can lock the aspect ratio, so that means it's going to get bigger and smaller in both directions at the same time, in the same orientation, because I don't want to make it tall and skinny or short and fat. I can go, if I go to my plus and minus buttons, it's going to make it bigger, but it's not going to stay within the area. Okay, let's go back to Align. You can see I didn't leave left highlighted. I didn't leave bottom highlighted. So let me go back, highlight left, highlight bottom, go back to resize. Now, my triangle is not perfect because I just made up a triangle area. The design is great, but my piecing was poor. So I can then, if I go smaller or larger, it's going to stay locked into that corner and it's going to go and fill this triangle. So what I typically do is make it until it fills one size. And I say, okay, that's as tall as I want it. Let me turn off the tallness and just make it wider until it fits. And I just made my triangle fit. Did that make sense to you? Because I'm going to do that again. And I'm going to do it in a different orientation to show you that it still works. So I'm going to go to File. I'm going to go to Clear All. And I'm going to make a new area. This time the area is going to have the corner up in the top. So I'm going to do multi-point, multi-point, multi-point. Okay. Then I'm going to go load up my design, which you're not going to see me load it in the design because it's a different window. There's my leaf bouquet. So I'm going to go to modify. I'm going to go to rotate. Sometimes you don't need to go to rotate. Sometimes it'll do it. But I'm going to rotate it. Wait, wrong button. Rotate it. So now the top corner is where the top corner is. And I'm going to go to align. And I'm going to say align it to the top because you can see that line is there. And I'm going to align it to the left. So my design is now in my area. And since these are still highlighted, I can go to resize, lock the aspect ratio, which means it's going to get bigger or smaller without changing the original design's proportions. And I'm going to make it bigger or smaller as I need to. Because it's locked into that corner, it's just going to grow down toward that diagonal. And then when I'm happy with the diagonal, wow, I drew a pretty good triangle in that place. I didn't need to adjust it all. But if my triangle was a little longer on one side, I could unlock the aspect ratio and just make it a little wider. So I'm going to stop sharing, come back and see you. Did that make sense? Did you like that? A way to recover, the way to fill your triangles without triangle skew. And that is if triangle skew didn't work for you well in Pro Stitcher Premium, it didn't do what you wanted it to do. Or if you're in Pro Stitcher Lite, that's how I make my triangles fit. So many miles. I literally needed to do this last night. I did it a totally different way, but your way would have been easier. I'm so glad. And what's cool about Pro Stitcher, as long as you got it done, it's right. If you found out a way to make it work, as long as it worked, it worked. But sometimes there's a little shortcut, and that's what I'd like to give you, is some shortcuts that I've learned. I've been teaching I've been with Handy Quilter since before the Pro Stitcher came out. So I think I came on early 2006. And I think the first version of the Pro Stitcher came out later that year. And I've been through a couple major iterations. And it's just been stressful for me to learn it. But now I'm very comfortable with it. Hopefully, though, I can give you some shortcuts and let you see just the points you need to learn and a couple things you can refer back to. So what I didn't do on your handout is I didn't write instructions on how to do this. So you'll have to come back and watch this video on YouTube. You go, oh, I really need to do a triangle. Skew isn't working, or I have Pro Stitcher Lite. How can I make that work? So what the handout says is in a triangle without triangle skew, align the design to two sides of a right triangle and resize within the area. So that was my short version on your handout, but hopefully you can come back to this video whenever you need to do it. You might not need to do this for 6 months and then you're like, wait, I remember watching that once. Come back to the core skills and you can watch the video on how to do it. Jean, good stuff. Good. Glad it helped. Because again, I've stressed over this over the years. And as Handy Quilter evolves, as Pro Stitcher evolves, it's so much easier. But sometimes there's still a lot of clutter out there. There's a lot of buttons. So I'm trying to push away the buttons we're not using and show you how to use the buttons we are using. See, Carolyn. I'm so glad I found you. Yes, I need to learn more. Don't we all? Very helpful. Okay, good. Yes. All right. Glad to help. So that is a line. Let me pull up that handout again. So on using Align and Reposition in Pro Stitcher Premium, you can align. It works on the area. You need an area to make a line work. So you can stretch it, but it doesn't always mean stretch the way we think about it. And you can make it fit in a triangle by using those align tools without skew. Okay. That is the left half of your handout. Now on the right half of your handout, we're going to talk about reposition because it does a lot of the same things, but it does it differently. And right, the top thing you need to know is reposition works on the crosshair and the needle. Let's see. Diana, great information. Thank you. Very, very happy to help. It is a joy of my life to make things clear for you. Let's see, Pam, I appreciate your details of reviewing a lot and explaining in my old age language. Let's see, I'll take off the handout. Hold on, stop. That's not what I wanted to do. Remove. Okay, it's just me. Do you see the gray hair? Yeah, I've got 4 grandkids, another on the way. I've got old age brain as well. Dina, you've never used Align? Now you can. That's what it does. But with Align, things that help me remember are alliteration. So Align starts with A and the word area starts with A. When you're using Align, you have to have an area. And it's going to align it to those places in the area. Left side, right side, top side, bottom, whatever. Okay. So Align, area. And I'll review this again at the end of class. But we're going to move over to reposition. And reposition uses the crosshairs on the screen or the needle on your quilt. Okay. Sorry, working on the voice here. My husband and I both had the virus that shall not be named. We're both feeling 95% better. Neither of us are contagious. We've just agreed we're going to cough and sound deep until Christmas. Just kind of one of those little lingering things. So I apologize if you're just finding me. This isn't my voice, but everything else is working well. Let me share screen. Go back over to my Pro Stitcher and share. Okay. I'm going to get into Pro Stitcher on my computer. I'm going to go back to File, one of my favorite buttons, File, Clear All. Boom. Now, what I'm not going to do, reposition using the crosshairs or the needle. On the top line, the top box on the right side of your handout says, position a design on your quilt using the crosshairs or needle, even if you haven't defined an area. So there will be no area at all here. I am going to load a design. Let's just go back to that feather block again because I like it. I am going to go to modify and I'm going to hit reposition. So right now, I'm finding some comments. What is point to point? I think we're going to cover that at the end. Later on in this. So can we just hold on that, Doris? Hope you're back to normal before Christmas. My husband and I, we will never be normal. We were born not normal, but we just are going to sound deep for a while. And I appreciate you covering Pro Stitcher Lite also. That's what you have. Now, Pro Stitcher Lite and Pro Stitcher Premium are 2 different ways to do the same thing. I could buy a Honda Civic, I could buy a Honda Accord, or I could buy an Acura. They're all going to get me where I'm going reliably. Some of them just have more features. They're all going to do what I need them to do reliably, but some have more features and more comfort. So I wanted to show you how that worked. Okay, back. I can turn that off. Doris, okay, if I don't, call up the comment again, but I believe we're gonna be doing point to point because I have my handwritten notes for the rest of class. So let me go back to my Pro Stitcher screen. So here I can move my crosshairs, and I'm going to move my crosshairs by moving my machine. Am I sharing? Can you see me? Let me go back. Yes. Okay. You can see me. So I can either move the machine to get the needle where I want it on the screen. And I'm just moving the crosshairs because I'm in simulation right now. So my crosshairs are right here. What I'm going to do is right now over here, if you can follow my cursor, I have a red dot and a green dot. And that is the starting of my design and the end of my design. On this design, they happen to be in about the same place. So I can say I'll put the start point on my crosshairs, or I'll put the end point on my crosshairs. They're pretty much the same place. And if I can't see everything, I'm going to follow my cursor, come back down to the house, and that's the refresh button. And it gets everything back in the center for me. So I can move it to the start point and the end point. If I'm doing a design where it starts in the middle and ends in the middle, or if it starts on the left side and ends on the right side, I can move the design to my crosshairs without having I will easily move the design to my crosshairs on the start point, end point. What do I need to do? Now, having said all of this, I use skew whenever possible. So I don't use any of these features a lot, but this is what they do and how they work as problem solvers. So I can say, here are my crosshairs. I want to center my design over my crosshairs. And the center of my block is right here. And that's just taking it mathematically. Like you may look at this and say, oh, I think that's the center of the block. But the computer's going, nope, I measured it. That's the center of my design. And it's right over my crosshairs. I can drag and drop. So I can hit drag. And then when I move my machine, it's just going to follow along with me and to wherever I want it to go. So why would I do that? So let's say drop. And let's do this. So on my quilt, I decided I don't have any area. This block, let's go see how big this block is. So the design, so I have the block selected. I'm going to go over to the right, and I have design, workspace, and reposition. So the design, my block is 8.07 by 8.02 inches. Okay, that works great. So I have an 8-inch design going on my quilt, and I want it to be stitched in the center of every 9-inch block. And it's a 4-patch. My design is a 4-patch. So I have I'm going to hover my needle over the center of my block, over that intersection of a 4-patch. I am going to go and say center, and then I can baseline and stitch it out. I can then, when I'm done, I can either move my needle over to this, by moving my machine, move my needle over to the center of my next block where it's right over the intersection, and press center again, baseline and stitch, or I can say, well, let's drag it. Do I ever use drag and drop like this on a real quilt? I don't think I ever have, but that's what it does. And let's see, so center, drag and drop. Now, if you've never used drag and drop, what drag and drop does is it locks my needle, my crosshairs to the design. So when I hit drag, I want you to watch what happens to this drag button. I'm going to hit drag, and instantly it turns into drop. So what it did was it locked these crosshairs to this design. And as I move my needle around the machine, the design is just coming with me. And if I say, oh, that's where I want it, you have to remember to hit drop. Because if you don't hit drop, say, yep, that's where I want it, and then I go to reposition to pull up my bobbin, the whole design moves again. So you have to remember to turn it off and lock it into place. Let's see. Teresa, thanks for your assistance, joining from Western Mass. Hello, I'm not very far from there. I am near Danbury, Connecticut, but in New York. So like 2 hours south of Albany. So not too far from you. Hello, B. And I lost you. You have a 4-patch. You repeat the same action within each block. Okay, let me stop here. So this is if I don't have an area on my quilt. Now, mind you, on my first lesson I did in this series for Pro Stitcher, I always use skew. I always have an area, but that's just how this works. So if I have a design, if I have a block and it's a 4-patch, I'm going to go corner, 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 skew, baseline stitch. That's what I'm going to do 99 and 44/100% of the time. However, this is how reposition works. So if that block is a 4-patch and I don't want to make an area, let me start that over again. Share screen. Share. Thanks for jumping in with a question. I appreciate that, Sharon. So where's my Pro Stitcher? So I'm going to hover my needle over that intersection of my 4-patch block. And I know my 4-patch is 9 inches or 8.5 inches or whatever. And that I know that this block is the size I want it. So I can hit the center point. I can hit the center button here, and the design will center itself around my needle, which is in the center of my block. And then I can go baseline and stitch it out. So it could be a pinwheel. It could be anything that just has a seam, a seam intersection in the middle of your block. It doesn't have to be a 4-patch. Did that make more sense, Sharon? I hope so. Then I can move my needle over to the center of the next block, which I know where the center is because of the piecing, and hit center again. Or I can hit drag and just carry it over with me and hit drop. I would tend to do center in this. Sharon, I got you. Okay, good. I want to make sure I'm clear. So thank you for that. Lori, how did I move the start and end? This doesn't move the start and end. What it does, though, is it positions the starting and ending point. Let me pull up a different design. There we go. So you didn't see me pull up a design because I'm only sharing this screen and I would have to share a separate screen. So here's my, here's a continuous line design. So you can see the start and end are in different places. I am going to go into modify, reposition, and I could put the start point on my crosshairs. Or I could put the end point on my crosshairs. That's how I make that happen. That's the top row. So here's my cursor, follow it over to the top row on the sidebar here. I can put the start point goes to my crosshair, or the end point goes to my crosshair. The center of the design goes to my crosshair. Drag and drop, again, I don't use that very often, but that's how I would do that. Lori, does that make sense? Let me know if that cleared it up. Let's see. I've had my tablet have a meltdown. I've had to start all over, so I used reposition. Yes, that works really. That definitely is a way to do that. Doris, when would I use follow? Let's see, Doris. When would I use follow? So I use follow. Follow is not available in Pro Stitcher Lite. So my Pro Stitcher Lite folks, I don't want you to look for it. What follow is, let's come over here. I'm bringing my needle, my crosshairs over. I've got 2 little rubber duckies over here. And let's just say I want to see what's happening right inside the spoke of this wheel, okay? So if I am going to, let me go into resize. So right now I'm hovering my crosshairs over it. I don't want to resize, sorry. I'm going to go down to the make it bigger and make it smaller button here, the zoom. So I'm going to make it bigger. Oh, wait, Now I have to move it over because my crosshairs went off my screen. So I'm going to make it bigger because I still need to blow up and see what's, oh, wait, I need to move it over till it gets back on the screen. This is when I would use follow. So let me start back over here. I'm going to hit follow. That's going to keep my crosshair in the center of my screen. So now when I zoom in, it's going to zoom in on that point that I want to see. Like I want to see what's going on very closely there. Does that make sense? Hopefully that made sense for you. Let me stop sharing. So Lori, I went back over. So Lori, yes, but you moved both to the other side of your design. I did not. I didn't move them in the design at all. I can do that, but that's not what this feature does at all. Let's see. Doris, hopefully that made follow make sense. Can I drag and drop again? Yes, I can. Mavis, you never understood follow? Yeah, it's really, it just keeps the crosshairs in the center. So if I make things bigger and smaller, I can always see exactly what's going on. Like, did my line meet up? Are they touching? What's going on there? Are there enough stitches? Did I crop it in the right place? That's what I use follow for. Lori, let's see. I'm going back up with questions. I moved both to the other side of your design. I don't recall doing that. I'm sorry that I confused you, but all it's doing in reposition is just attaching it to the crosshairs and the needle, the start point or the end point. It's not redesigning anything. It's just moving the design. That's all it's doing. Liz, I'm confused. Let's see. I'm confused. You don't need to have an area in order to stitch. True. Do I have an area when I stitch? Almost 100% of the time, as in 100% of the time. But this is what align does. You can, reposition. You can reposition without an area. And that's why you have to use the crosshairs and the needle for it. It's not how I choose to quilt, but you can. I tend to do corner, 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 skew, baseline stitch. That's how I do mine, but you can do it this way. I just want to explain the difference between align and reposition because they're similar but different. Cindy, no sound. Let me, someone else leave a comment to know if it's me or Cindy's computer. Frozen. Okay, let's see what's happening. Hello. This is when, okay. So Doris, I got you covered, Doris. Mavis, now you understand follow. Lori, you're good. Okay, no sound. Frozen. Liz, that worked for you. Okay, looks like we're back up and running. So thank you for your patience. Computers, right? I think W.C. Fields, the old movie actor, said he didn't want to work with children or animals. I think he also wouldn't want to work with technology because it would upstage him. Okay, so let's go back into sharing the screen and work through those align tools. I'm sorry, reposition tools. And let me get back into Pro Stitcher on my end. So there we go. Let me go to File, Clear All, load the design, load the feather block, go back into Modify and Reposition. So far, follow my cursor. We've worked on start point and end point. And all that's doing is locking the start point to my crosshairs and locking the end point to my crosshairs. That's it. The center of the design goes to my crosshairs. The 0 point of the design goes to the crosshairs. And that's something I never use. It just depends on what the 0 point is and when it's been digitized. Have I ever used that on a quilt? No. And if you ever aren't sure what something does, follow my cursor. You're going to come up here to the blue question mark. That's your help button. And now when I press 0, it says position the design according to the 0 location, depending on how the motif designer created the design. It may be to the start point of the feature, it may be in the middle, it may be another point. Some digital designers use the home location for positioning. Have I ever used this on a quilt? No, I have not, but that's what it does. So center, we wanted to see drag and drop again. So if I'm moving, I want to hit drag. I'm going to move the design from my crosshairs being here to my crosshairs being here, and I want the design to come with me. So I'm going to pick up, I put my, hit drag. That's this button here, it says drag. And the second I hit drag, it changes the word. It no longer says drag, it says drop. So I'm going to move it over to where my needle, I'm looking at the quilt, I'm putting the needle down where I want it. And as long as this is highlighted, every time you move your needle, it's going to move with you. So you have to remember to drop it so it's not highlighted. And now I can move my needle and the design will stay in position. That's what drag and drop does. Okay, so another question come up here. Deborah, can you tell us the quilting design on the quilt behind you? The quilt behind me, the pattern is one of my patterns. It's called Bowl of Cherries. And this was done with the walking foot on my home sewing machine. I also teach home sewing machine. I teach free motion and I teach Pro Stitcher. I just put that quilt up because it matches my scarf. So it's not a Pro Stitcher design. I used a decorative stitch and a walking foot and multiple colors of thread on my home sewing machine. I just like quilting no matter how I get it done. Okay, let me go back to my Pro Stitcher screen. So we've done the center, we've done drag and drop, we've done 0. So we're now on this box here. And where it says top left, top right, bottom left, bottom right. So I can put my crosshairs over here and I say top left. I want the top left of the design to be at my crosshairs. I want the top right of the design to be at my crosshairs. The bottom left of the design is at my crosshairs. The bottom right design is at my crosshairs. Does that make sense? I don't use that very often, but that's what it does. Okay. And then let me go back. Stop sharing and come and say hi. Oops, sorry. Facebook Messenger is talking to me. So on my handout, the handout that you can get on my website, it's at the very top of the chat in YouTube and in Facebook. You have to buy it from my website, but it's free. I'll never know you were there. It'll just email it to you. So the handout says reposition. So we're positioning the design even without a defined area. Then the second bar says, let me pull up the handout for you. Place designs precisely on my quilt. Hover the needle over a specific place on your quilt and easily position the design, which you've seen we've done. We've done top left, bottom left, center, start point, end point, etc. The next line of designs in the line of options in reposition is called nudge. So we're going to use the nudge feature. You can nudge it a little, nudge it a lot. We're going to use the nudge feature to move your design into place using small increments. So let's see, Mavis has a suggestion. I use top left to align my quilt at the start. That works great. So these are all different tools you can use. I tend, and we all have our favorite tools, you know, like you have your favorite burner on the stove, you have your favorite spoon you use when you're cooking. I'm in my kitchen, so I'm just looking around. I'm teaching in my kitchen right now. So you can have your favorite tools. Some people prefer, I prefer skew. It's my favorite tool. Some people prefer to use that stretch button to make something fit into the area. And you can use these align tools. I just want to explain align and reposition. I want to explain how they work. So I want to share and show you what nudge does. So here we are. Let me get back on my computer. Let me center everything. So what if I say, well, it's it's not exactly where I want it. There's this nudge feature right here that I can say, oh, let's move that over a little bit. And I could just move it over. And it's moving it over at 1/100th of an inch to the left. I can also move it to the right by just repeatedly pressing that button. Top, I can move it up a little bit. I can move it down a little bit. I can move it diagonally if I wanted to. But that's what nudge does. It just precisely moves something. And that is within reposition. Now, this is, let's see. The default on this is 1/100th of an inch. So what I'm going to do is go follow my cursor. I'm going up to my settings wheel here. And let me check one thing. I just want to check Pro Stitcher Lite. I forgot to check that beforehand. Documents, classes, Pro Stitcher. Talk amongst yourselves. I'm fine. I'm looking up to make sure that what I'm telling you is true. So I'm looking at the Pro Stitcher comparison chart for Pro Stitcher Lite. So let's see what nudge does. Again, talk amongst yourselves. Reposition. Nudge. Yes, it's available in Pro Stitcher Lite. I just wanted to make sure I was telling you the correct information. Sorry about that. But the default on this is 1/100th of an inch. So I'm going to go up to this settings button here. It looks like a gear, that little settings wheel. I think that is on, that's standard on Apple as well as on desktop platforms. So that should be something you're familiar with. It's in Pro Stitcher all the time, but if you're Apple only, I know I have this on my iPhone. So I'm hitting the settings wheel, and I'm going to go over to defaults. And one of the defaults is nudge. And I can say, oh, but 1/100th of an inch, really, that's not that far. I can change that to 0.1 inch. My period's not working right now. Let me see, period 1. I think that works. So I can change my default settings there, but let's see. Settings, defaults, nudge is at an inch. Let me change that over here. And now I'm putting it back at 100th of an inch. So that's where I set the default of that. But we can go back into modify, reposition, and nudge. And that's what nudge does. Sometimes I might nudge a design into place. Let me stop sharing and say hi to you. Hello, I'm back. Sometimes I nudge a design into place if I want to position it so that this design goes into that design, and I very, very rarely do it. But I just want to make sure it's positioned exactly where I want it, and I can't drag and drop as accurately like I want it just that far, but I'm afraid if I reposition by drag and drop, I'm going to go whoosh and move it too far. That's what the nudge feature does. So going back through the handout, let me pull up the handout again. Use align and reposition in Pro Stitcher Premium. These are things you might not use all the time, but they're available for you. So align is based on an area. You have to have an area, and it will reposition within the area. You can stretch it, which doesn't always mean stretch. And you can, sometimes it means shrink because it'll just fit it to your area. And when you're aligning, one of the uses of this is to align it to a triangle. Let's see, I'm getting a comment here. If you click on the O1, you can change it to a larger size. That's correct. You can also change your default so it's always a different size. So thank you for that. Thank you. I love that that I have people that make up where my brain leaves off. And none of this is COVID. My brain just has holes in it because of my age and personality. So thank you for that very much. So that's how a line works. And I will go back and I'm going to show you a real quick refresh. So Many Miles Studio. Would I use nudge to position two designs to merge them? That's exactly what I would do if I'm trying to get them to touch each other. So let me show you that. Let's see, share screen, Pro Stitcher, share. Okay. That's when I would do it, but I also can change things around. There are many ways, as a few people have mentioned. I did it this way, I did it that way. There's different ways to do this, but that's one thing, getting them to join. So I am going to clear all. I am going to load a dump truck. I'm going to load a cement truck, and I'm going to load a fire engine. So I have my machine set up right now so that it loads point to point. Now, that's the point to point I was talking about. That means after I load one design, it goes start to end. And I have the default on my machine that when I load it, say there's my cement truck, I'm going to, oh, sorry, same design. I'm going to load my dump truck. Oh, my word. I am going to load my cement truck. So it joined it together automatically. It loaded them point to point. So I didn't have to use nudge to make that work. I'm going to check to make sure this is available in Pro Stitcher Lite before I tell you. Load point to point. Sorry, I apologize. Talk amongst yourselves. Load point to point does not appear to be available in Pro Stitcher Lite. So I just want to give you the truth. I never want to over or undersell something. So what I can do is go into settings. Let's see. I'm going to go into settings. I'm going to go to advanced. I'm going to go to general. And here at the bottom, and this is only in Pro Stitcher Premium, I can load the start point at my crosshairs. So wherever my crosshairs happen to be on my screen, that's where the next start point will be. Or if I'm trying to load 3 designs and getting them to join together, I'm loading them point to point, and it'll automatically load them point to point. So let me change that default right now. And go back to File. I'm going to close selected. So here I'm loading another design. That's not the one I wanted. Let me pick a different one. So I loaded a cement truck, and I want to move them together. So what I typically do for that is load my grid. Let me hit follow, like I mentioned was something I use. Okay. So I can now hit reposition, modify, reposition. I'm going to hit drag and drop. That's just going to bring that closer over to here. And then I can zoom in, hit erg, hit follow, zoom in again. So here I can see, is that working? I could choose to nudge it over if I didn't trust the reposition. Let me make that a little bigger. So it looks like it needs to nudge down and over a little bit. And then what I would do here is go to View, turn off my start and end point so that that doesn't get in the way. Go back to modify, reposition. And that looks pretty close. So then I can go back to the center of my screen. I'm going to turn off my crosshairs, my grid, I mean, and I am going to unselect everything. And I'm going to select this one and see what that join looks like. And that, and then I can hit point to point on the designs. But that's a much more advanced feature, but that's when I would use the nudge. So let me come back and see you and see if I lost everybody on that. Did that answer your question on how I would do that? Okay. So that would, we went a little into the weeds on that, but I do like to answer the questions I get. So let me go back to, I'm going to go back to view and turn my start and end point back on because I had turned them off. If you turn something off, remember to always turn it back on. Let me go back and clear everything. Clear all. So I am going to define an area. Two corner. I'm going to load a design, which is going to be my feather block. Oh, that one turned out bigger. So going into modify, I can go to align and I can, without hitting all the buttons, I can just hit stretch and that made it fit. So I didn't have to make left side, right side, top, bottom. So that made that fit there. Let me go file, clear all. I'm going to make a triangle area. It's going to be multi-point. I'm intentionally making this a little off. Let me load a design. You're not going to see me load the design. That's not the one I wanted. That's the one I wanted. So I'm going to go into modify, rotate, and just use that 45-degree to get it in the same general area. I'm going to go back into align. I'm going to hit align to the left, align to the bottom, and they're still highlighted so that I can now go into resize, lock my aspect ratio, and then I can come in and make it fit. There we go. So I'm going to, whoops. So that is now fitting left and right. I'm going to unlock the aspect ratio and just make it taller. And if I choose to make that just a hair smaller, I've got my design in my triangle. Ah, I forgot to share my screen. Do-over. Did I mention that computers are not that I'm not always excellent at it? Hopefully I can give you some comfort that if you're someone who forgets to press the buttons, you can still learn how to do this. So let's do that all over again. Share screen, share screen. Thanks for your patience with me. Okay, so we'll do this again. Pro Stitcher, file, clear all. I'm going to make an area. So I'm going to go to the area tab and make a 2-corner area. I can go into modify. Oh, I've loaded design. Sorry, design. I'm going to load my, that's not the one I want. I'm going to load my feather block. So I can go into modify and align now. And I pressed all those buttons, but I can just go and say, I'm going to hit that stretch in both directions, and it now fits. Ready to baseline and stitch. It can be that simple. let me go back to Pro Stitcher and File, Clear All. I'm going to start again by making an area. And I'm intentionally making it not a perfect triangle because I want to fit it weird. Okay, let me load that triangle design. I'm going to go into Modify. I'm going to go into Rotate. I'm just going to rotate it 45 degrees until it's in the right orientation. Then I'm going to go into Align and say I want it to align to the left and to the bottom. I can now go into Resize, which is here, lock the aspect ratio. Let me make so I can see this. So right there, it is now fitting left to right. I can turn off the aspect ratio, just make it taller until it fits. That's how I would use the Align tools. Stop sharing. How would I set up to do this in Pro Stitcher Lite? Just the way I showed you, because I would use triangle skew in Pro Stitcher Premium. But this all works in Pro Stitcher Lite that way. I'm now going to jump back into Pro Stitcher, and I'm going to share it right now before I forget. I'm just going to do a last review of the rest of the tools. So here we go. File, Clear All. I can now, without making an area, let me load a design. I'm going to load that feather block again. I can go into Modify and Reposition, and I can use the needle of my quilt. I'm sorry, hover the needle over the position on the quilt. Like this is the center of the block, and I can just hit center. And now the center of that block is over in the center over my needle, which is in the center of my quilt, my quilt block. So they're pretty similar but different. And again, I would use skew most of the time because I prefer that. But hopefully, other than when I wasn't sharing my screen, hopefully this gave you some ideas. Download the handout. You can watch this again. You can watch it and fast forward and skip the parts where I didn't share the screen, but give you an idea of how to use your Align and your Reposition. My theory on quilting, for me personally, on using the Pro Stitcher, is I use skew. And I only use other buttons if skew doesn't work. So I might only need to do some of these a few times a year if it doesn't work within what skew does. So don't worry about trying to memorize it. Just remember where the tools are to help you find this. So hopefully this gave you a little bit of information. You can download the handout. It's at the top of the chat on Facebook and YouTube, both. It is, you have to go to my website and buy the handout, but it's free. It'll just be an automatic download. So hopefully that made it clear. Next week is the last in this series, and what we're going to talk about is stitch setting, knots, and tacking, and all the different stitch settings and why we would choose those. So just kind of the nuts and bolts. And I will, of course, this is going to be in Pro Stitcher Premium, but I will make note of what works in Pro Stitcher Lite. So be sure to tune back in. Remember, all of these are saved on the Pro Stitcher YouTube channel. If you want to see more of what I'm doing as patterns and teaching and things like that, my name on the screen is Debby Brown Quilts. And you can find me there. That's my website, YouTube, Pinterest, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all of those things. So I'm really easy to find online. I'd love you to keep in touch and show me what you're making. So until I see you again next week on Tuesday, I think I'm in New York, it's at noon. I'm really bad with time zones. So I'll see you at the same time next week for our last lesson. Thanks for playing along. Hopefully this helped and cleared a few things up and gave you a couple, oh, that's how you do that moments. So until I see you again next week, take care of yourselves. Take care of each other and happy quilting. Bye.